Chapter 8. Again the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury. Thus saith the Lord, I am returned unto Zion, and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called a city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, There shall yet old men and old women dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, and every man with his staff in his hand for very age. And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, If it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in my eyes, saith the Lord of hosts? Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, I will save my people from the east country, and from the west country. And I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God in truth and in righteousness. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Let your hands be strong, ye that hear in these days these words by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord of hosts was laid, that the temple might be built. For before these days there was no hire for man, nor any hire for beast, neither was there any peace for him that went out or came in, because of the affliction. For I set all men every one against his neighbor. But now I will not be unto the residue of this people, as in the former days, saith the Lord of hosts. For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their dew. And I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all these things. And it shall come to pass that as ye were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah, and house of Israel, so will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, As I thought to punish you, when your fathers provoked me to wrath, saith the Lord of hosts, and I repented not, so again have I thought in these days to do well unto Jerusalem, and to the house of Judah. Fear ye not. These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath. For all these things that I hate, saith the Lord. And the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, The fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th, shall be to the house of Judah joy and gladness, and cheerful feast. Therefore love the Lord, love the truth and peace. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, It shall yet come to pass that there shall come people, and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, Let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, In those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. In chapter 8, Zechariah has the typical reaction of every prophet. Every prophet has to do something, but prefers to do something else. And what they have to do is they have to strongly condemn the sins and transgressions and attitudes and ways of behavior of the people in their time. And the reason they had to do that is in every time they were always called the corrupt people. It wasn't that the people were made corrupt because all of a sudden the prophets showed up and had a bunch of laws that the people couldn't help but break. The Lord saw these people, that they were morally corrupt, that they were breaking every law, that they were headed for destruction, and the prophets were sent as sort of the lifeguards to rescue them. And these people beat off the lifeguards. So in his day, Zechariah is looking at the city of Jerusalem, looking at the temple, looking at all of the land all around, and this place had been taken over by the Babylonians, been destroyed 70 years before, and a group of people had come back who were workers, in essence. They were people who were physically young to middle age. There were no old people. There were almost no kids, if there were any kids at all. And so you had a city that was totally destroyed. And these people, I mean, the city itself would have been destroyed. The walls would have been broken down. No effort would have been made to put anything in order. When Nebuchadnezzar's troops left, they had just conquered that city. They didn't necessarily want to pile all the lumber in a good place where it might be recycled. They didn't want to put any of the rocks or anything back. Everything was just where it was knocked down and left there. These people were soldiers, not builders. And so when the Jews came back, who came back? It wasn't families that came back. It was people who were capable of lifting lumber and carrying stone and doing all these other sorts of things. And they weren't necessarily the farmers. They weren't necessarily the people that would make it green, the people who plant vineyards and trees and olive orchards. Those were not the people that necessarily came back. The first goal was to rebuild the temple and put up the city walls. They needed workers. And so what he saw was a totally destroyed city. The streets would have been full of rubble. Places would have been burned. The temple would have been destroyed. The walls would have been breached. And this is what he would have been talking about. And the people would have been lying and cheating and stealing on one another, as happens in every poor community pretty well. And these are things he's already cried out against. But Zechariah is an optimist, as most prophets are. And not only do they see people as they are, not only do they see the city as they are, but the Lord also gives them incentive to do the job that they're called to do, to carry the tough load, to say the tough words, because he gives them a vision of how Jerusalem could be in the future, when it is restored, when the people are living righteously, when, as it says here, it would be a city of truth and a temple of the mountain of the Lord. And the temple of the mountain of the Lord and the mountain of the Lord is the temple of the Lord, properly built, properly supported, because the people are righteous. They don't need all the gold and silver and the brass and the huge great edifices and all the fancy everything. The thing that makes a temple worthwhile is the righteousness of the people. He basically sees as well that there will be old men and there are old women, and it says living in the streets. What it means isn't that they won't have houses and they're going to be homeless. What he means is that they will be having a life, visiting with one another, going out and visiting with their friends, enjoying the life. Because in those days, life was in the streets. All the merchants were there, everything was there, everything was in the street. You met your friends in the street, you met your friends at fountains, you sat down on the sides of the road, whatever, but you lived life in the street, and you went home to do one of two things: eat, go to sleep. That was it. The rest of it, you lived life in the street. And there's a promise in verses 11 through to 17. Promise of Judah that they would be gathered in the last days and restored. The condition, however, in verses 16 to 17 must be understood. They must obey the commandments of God. And in verses 20 to 23, when are all these prophecies going to take place? The tribe of Judah, who are the first ones back, and that's what the nation of Israel is now, is the tribe of Judah, essentially, will turn with full purpose of heart to serve the Lord. That's when all of these prophecies will take place.